to say you are my friend. When I was down, you just stood there grinning. You've got a lot of nerve to say you got a helping hand to lend. You just wanna be on the side that's winning. You say I let you down. You know it's not like that. You're so hurt. Why then don't you show it? You say you lost your faith, but that's not where it's at. You had no faith to lose, and you know it.
Folks, welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show. Comedy on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live. Download our free app to your smartphone so you can stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. Can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today. And I've connected with many, many different families along the way here. Everybody from the Neville brothers to, oh gosh, I mean, it's after 3,500 interviews, you wind up connecting with a lot of different cats. And, it's really an honor of mine. I feel very spiritually connected to this next family. And it's a high honor to talk to the oldest daughter of Ernie Stiers, an artist in her own right. Sarah Stiers, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Hi, Jake. Glad to be here with you.
Great to be here with you. I wanted you just to talk to the audience a little bit about some of the musical games that your dad would play with you when you were a kid.
Well, my father was a teacher. He was first of all like an educator type. So what he wanted us to do was learn what he wanted us to learn. This is my memory of him. And myself, I was kind of rebellious. I had a lot of talent. My brother and sister did too. But I felt that the sort of forcing of jazz concepts and atonal music was difficult for me to.
I love it.
To comprehend.
I'm telling you right now. I just want to be very clear. I mean, Ernie. Not Ernie. Ernie. Your father is like deeply embedded in my soul. I can, okay. and I feel him very deeply. But the idea of, the truth is, Sarah, is that there really wasn't a jazz curriculum then. You go to schools now; they have Ernie Stiers books, for all I know. They have books on everybody, and back then it was, was your dad making up the rules, even though he was bringing some kind of wonkish stuff home to you?
Well, I remember him, and this was later on, telling me that nobody passed, I can't remember if it was before or past John Coltrane was relevant at all. So he was a little rigid, He was extremely gifted. And as we know, we come from a long musical heritage. But I think there was some defiance in there. I think he had issues, with his family. And so this was his way to strike off from the classical music and also religious, the Episcopal side of the family, and do his own thing, And as you know, he's incredibly talented.
Well, I mean, the dude was, I mean, he's probably one of the most unheralded cats. I mean, he was so below my radar before your sister hit me to him. But I guess in his most relaxed moments, can you share the how the kind of creative activities you guys would do? I mean, you really were living a hippie lifestyle to a degree.
Yes.
I believe.
Well, he worked for NBC at that time. You know, we moved to San Francisco when I was, I think, 5 or 6, and he got a job in the city, and we lived there for a year. So he was working full time. And then we moved to Mill Valley. And it wasn't that long after that my parents broke up. So I was 9 when they separated. So, and it's weird, I don't have a whole lot of memories. Most of my memory of him is after that time. I went for long periods of time without seeing him, but boy, when I showed up at the door, he was ready with the records and the cuts. And, I have and then my son. Also, I have a photograph of my dad with a record in his hand trying to turn my son on to, big band jazz and, the stuff that he considered. He didn't write that way, but he admired and loved those composers. And I remember being at my sister's wedding. He came out, and his only position was the guy in the green coat in the wedding pictures. He did not walk her down the aisle. My stepfather did. But he came, which was a big deal for him. And I remember we were in a restaurant having dinner, and there was something, some music, jazz on the radio, and he was calling out the chords of these incredibly difficult jazz lines. He must have had perfect pitch, which I do not. And I was so impressed, and I said, oh gosh, I wish I could do that. And my brother just said, well, but do you really want to? And, that was kind of how it was with our dad. He was sort of like, he was a musical genius, let's face it. And so he had all of the assets and whatever the opposite of assets are, as a person like that. He was not a great father, but we were always aware, at least I was, that he loved me very much, and he missed me very much. And in the childhood that I ended up having after that, that was really important to me. It always has been. I knew that if I wanted to, I could show up on his doorstep. And, my dad never had even an answering machine. The house still doesn't. His wife lives there. So you couldn't call him and leave a message. I mean, like, people had to show up on the doorstep.
Wait, hold on. The original Steyer's house is still in existence?
Yeah.
I got to get out there. I mean, I got to go out and document that. I mean, there's
you got to talk to Judy Steyer's before you do anything, because she may not.
Well, no, Judy will. I mean, no, I of course I'm not going to just cold run out there. But I mean, you're Ernie did not. He didn't. Your dad did not have an answering machine.
No, he did not. And she thought she would move out after he died, and she did not. So she's still there. Same phone number, no answering machine. At least I've never gotten one. So, no, he didn't. So the musicians that showed up at his door had to really, seek him out. This was before computers, so they had to actually show up at the door, and they did,
What was your...
showed up at his door.
Did you were you very upset with... I think... I haven't listened back. I did 2 Cosmic interviews with Liz, but I think if I remember correctly, he left you guys. He left to go to overseas, and you guys were basically there to raise yourselves. Is that accurate?
Yeah, he didn't go overseas. He moved to San Francisco and moved in with his girlfriend and tried to see us, on weekends, and that didn't work out very well. And then he ended up moving back to the East Coast, where he was from. And his second marriage lasted 8 years, and then he married Judith were, and he had a lot of them, old time, Paley, all these people, he would show me things, or, he sent a lot of stuff. Like I said, I kind of had more of a relationship with him in a way after he was gone. But he never really liked my music. I mean, I would send him CDs, or we went back and sang him songs, and he, one time sort of made a crappy statement where he called, one of them Songs to My Father, which I thought was really pretty shitty. if you don't mind my saying.
No, it's
so.
fine.
But but my CD, and I'm sorry, I don't know if you've encountered it or not. It's somewhere.
Well, actually, I was.
Really,
You know what
really
I was going to do? I was going to ask you to if you could sing a healing tune for all the people that are suffering, not just in the world,
that's
but
sweet of you.
But if you could sing a little bit for the audience around the world, that would be great.
Well, I'm not the singer my sister is.
I did not invite you on the program. There's no comparisons here. Just so
Well,
I mean, what I'm saying is, I couldn't find the discography of Sarah Stiers, so I guess I'm asking, just be yourself and just have a ball. Just let's hear you sing. Anything you want.
Well, let me see. Okay, I'll sing one. It's called Love Letter. I didn't sing lead on these songs, most of them on my CD, and I will send one to you.
Please.
I've lost my entire box of CDs somewhere. I moved to Michigan, and I know they came with me and the kids, and, I remember somebody bringing them over to my house, and I don't know where they are, so I have about 4 left. It's kind of a bummer, but also, I in terms of spirituality, I always take things with a grain of salt, and also as kind of pointing in a direction of something different, And the breakup of my band was very hard on all of us, and so I think it was sort of, and I'll run into him when the time is right. But I will send you one. You'll have to give me your address.
I just want to say, I'm just looking at this one picture on your Facebook page with 4 absolutely insane-looking women. One of them is you. It's a guitar, conga. And it's a quartet. This is going back. What band is that? You're holding a guitar. There's a woman leaning on a conga. Then there's 2 other females.
Oh yeah, that's Carnelian. That was my band.
I want to know about. Can you sing a tune from? What is it called? What was it called? Band called?
Yeah.
What was the band called?
Carnelian.
Carnelian.
And I want to do a shout out quickly to Peggy Dennis and Doris Silver, who were my bandmates. All through that experience, sang 3-part harmony with me, worked. We never did written music; it was all by ear. And those ladies,
I mean, if are these cats still with us? Because I might need to get to them immediately.
Yeah, they're alive. Do you mean?
Yeah, no, they're still on this earth. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, they're still on this earth, and they're incredible. We raised, we met when our kids were in school and kindergarten, and we raised our children together. And we did all these crazy gigs, in Colorado, and I think we didn't get outside Colorado, but and then, things fell apart as things do. But we got the CD finished, and when you hear it, the production by Jim Moratz, who was our engineer, it blows people away. And I think partly because they sort of think, wow, they thought I'd be sitting there with a tape recorder playing my guitar. But the other thing is he's just a master. And we did it in a basement with no computers. We did everything by ear. And we recorded our vocals over and over to, he could hear everything.
Wow.
And he was deaf in one ear, but, if you lilted just the tiny bit at the end of a phrase, he could hear it. So, that was kind of exhausting. It's just like, who cares? And I care, But it's a beautiful album. I wrote all the songs on it, and I played guitar, and there's some piano. And I had all sorts of crazy people, like the violin player with Devachka and the subdues accordion player. And all these people kind of meandered into the album. We thought it would just be us, like 4 or 5 of us, and it turned out to be this huge, fun production. And
wow.
I would just, they would come in, and I would just say, do what you do best. And I didn't tell them what to play or what instrument even, and they loved it. They did it for almost nothing because they just loved it so much, because they got to be really free, and I wasn't micromanaging. This is how I want it to sound, or listen to the words, that kind of thing.
Absolutely, it was very free. Let's please sing for the audience.
Okay, I like I said. Okay, I'll do it. This is a love letter to you. I'm feeling sad, but what can I do? I'm walking beside you inside. Something, sorry.
You're doing great.
Someone I loved so long ago still touches my heart, and so I wonder, where are you right now? Well, I loved you, baby, beneath the California. Don't forget me, son, we were together, but something was left undone. Now I miss you lately, and I wonder if you miss me too. Wrap your arms around me, and I'll hold you. I'll hold you. The ancient goddesses of love, heart connection from above, to reach down and touch the human soul and let it be whole. Shakti and Shiva and Psyche and Zeus, Sappho and Aphrodite too, they knew what they knew, and I do too. Well, I loved you, baby, beneath the Colorado. Don't forget me, son, we were together. Something was left undone. Now I miss you lately, and I wonder if you miss me too. Wrap your arms around me, and I'll hold you. I'll hold you. Ooh, this is a love letter to you. I'm feeling sad, but what can I do? I'm walking beside you, walking beside you, walking beside you inside. There you go.
So, can you give us a little context
Thank you.
on that song? That was wonderful.
Thank you. Well, it's one of the songs I wrote, let's see, when the band first came together, which was, a hell of a long time ago. And I, really don't look like I did in that picture either, Jake. I needed to tell you that. But anyway, when the band came together, I had a couple of, I had a few songs. I'd always been writing and I always had half songs lying around and stuff like that. But when we started singing, and somehow it got to be that I would be the songwriter, that we would do all original. We did Angel from Montgomery and maybe one other song, and that's all we ever did of other people's work. So then I had to start writing, and that was one of the first ones that I wrote in that tuning, which I think is, I don't know, it's drop D with a drop something else. I can do it, but I can't tell you what it is,
Right, right. I mean, but go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm curious about the, when you guys were basically raising yourselves,
Yeah.
The band that you had, the Stiers, was there a Stiers band?
We called ourselves at that point. The first thing we were was Liz and I, the Stiers sister, and we actually did this little gig up on Mount Tam at the little outdoor thing up there.
The Stiers sisters. I need photos of that and recordings immediately.
Well, we don't have them. I mean, I was singing with Moondance. What's his name? I'm an old lady.
Oh, Van Morrison.
Van Morrison's keyboard player was the brother of my girlfriend, a girlfriend of mine.
Was Jeffrey Labus?
Pardon me?
Who was the
James Trumbo.
Trumbo.
This was a long time ago.
Yeah. Okay. So okay. Continue.
but I believe he was on Moondance on the album. So he was the brother of a girlfriend of mine who was, and this family was fabulously talented, and she was an alcoholic, so it got a little strange. But anyway, we did a little gig up on Mount Tam. James put it together, and he played the piano for us, and he was a big fan of what we were doing, and a lot of people were. Huey Lewis was a fan. Alex Call was a fan. They liked as we went on to become the Cascades, my brother started playing with us, and we had this kind of interesting troupe of young people playing in our band at different times. We went through a few drummers. We had the same bass player forever. We had a keyboard player. That was my sister's boyfriend, Jimmy. And
Jimmy loved you. Jimmy loved you guys.
Well, I loved Jimmy. He was like, I loved him. It's like, things got a little crazy for a while, and then I didn't love him quite so much. But I really love him. He's a wonderful man, and I haven't seen him since he was a kid, but he was a great guy, and he was totally supportive of us all the time. We ran into people like that where whatever we couldn't get together, like they were always there, to help set up or whatever. So I've always been really lucky that way. I hold my own crap, but other people help me haul it.
So you were on the bandstand with your sister at what age?
I think that we started. I was in my early 20s. I did a few musical things before that, but I was in my very early 20s because she was 5 years younger than me almost. So she couldn't even. She moved in to the house that we grew up in that I was renting from my parents. And that's when we kind of started. We were both studying music in school. And so, and she had started singing, she had a beautiful voice. Where she went to Switzerland for a year to live with my mother and stepfather while they were studying to be Jungian analysts. And when she came back, my God, her voice was incredible. I don't know what she did. But anyway, when we started to, I know, not that I'm jealous or anything, but she gives it up. She
didn't tell you that. Had she just been woodshedding?
No, I don't know what she did. It was really strange. She sat on my bed and sang a folk song, and I was blown away. Not that I think she probably always was like that, but she was just a little kid, so I didn't notice. But when she came back from Switzerland, so when she moved in 460 with me, we started singing together, and that's I think that's when the Cascades or the Star Sisters happened, maybe even before she moved in. But anyway, it was when we were really young.
So you and is there? Can we get a year on this, or what year is this?
Maybe like 74.
74. So you had a gig on Mount Tam as the Steyer Sisters. Were you playing like, the Lion's Share in San Anselmo? Were you? What kind of gigs?
Oh no, we weren't. That would have been lovely, but I mean, the problem with my family, for all our talent, and we have a good sense of humor, is that nobody ever showed us. I remember 460 was the second house on our driveway, and there were a bunch of people living with me and a bunch of people living with my store. And this one guy who, wasn't a very good player and I thought he was a kind of a shitty lyricist, got a record deal in L.A. Everybody got a record deal, and I could not believe it, This was way back when. And I just was so resentful because I just thought, how can Rex get a record deal, But on the other hand, I knew people like Willie Sievers who wrote, hello, hello, would you like some of my tangerine, that was driving a cab. So it was really a toss-up, as to what happened. And it didn't happen for us, and we didn't know how to make it happen. She was the one that was much more in the scene. I didn't know that scene, I knew the people that, sort of hung around some of my renters, because I rented a room to Stan Moon Markham, who was a road manager and then I had to get to him, at the first of the month so we pay the rent.
Who was he? I'm sorry, who was he a road manager for?
Santana.
So, I mean, essentially though, like, you guys were all like, I mean, when
I
you...
should probably be telling these stories, but I can't help myself.
Well, I mean, it's not a
Anyway,
big
go
deal.
ahead.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, it's really not a big deal.
It's old history.
Well, I think it's also about.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. There's nothing about my show is about preservation. This is strictly about promotion because, you know, you can slight yourself as a musician, but the truth is the elasticity and the sort of freedom that you guys had as youth compared to the helicoptering parents that exist in today's paradigm lent itself to you guys pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone and growing as people. And that's kind of what I wanted to ask you about.
Right.
Is the first time that you've really pushed yourself, could be in a musical context or personally, when you pushed yourself outside your comfort zone and how you grew as a person and as a musician.
Well, I was always music. I went to college to study music a couple of times. Later on, I did again, and I was an ear person, so I was in with these terrific players. You know, they sight read everything, and I couldn't sight read, so I'd have to sit, you know, in the back of the class humming to myself. You know, that ear training was no problem. Like my professor had to take ear training 3 times. You know. And it was no problem for me. I could always hear everything, so I would tutor, you know, them in that. But I had to translate everything. And at that time, I had 3 little girls and a sort of rather upset teenage son at home. So, you know, my teachers kind of said, this is a little hard, don't you think? But that, doing that and trying to push through that was really good for me. I learned much more than I knew because it all went in. I just couldn't translate it the way everybody else could. And then later on, when Cornelian started up and some of the stuff that we did, all that came in handy.
Yeah, I want you to talk about that band. Now, how did that? Now, so you moved out of the Mill Valley milieu, and then you moved to.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of years between Mill Valley and my band, because I ended up eventually meeting my children's father and moving to Colorado, and that's where Cornelian was. It was not in California.
Yeah, no, I want to know about Cornelian. You birthed 4 children or 3 children in that time?
4. I had, the youngest was in kindergarten, and that's how the girls and I met.
But the 14-year-old was yours as well?
Yeah, I had a son when I was 17. I had a son when I was really young.
Unbelievable. Well, I mean, my gosh, you were a mom at 17.
So everything I did musically or, in Marin County, I had a kid the whole time. So he was, kind of like the band kid. And then,
but he wasn't the great thing about the vibe there was that, I mean, I've interviewed a lot of the pranksters kids. I mean, those guys were running around Grateful Dead shows having a ball. There wasn't a care in the world. I mean, I would assume your kid was with you at gigs and there was no issues.
Oh, yeah. Well, he was, but I was more uptight. It's very different to grow up, and you might have noticed this with Liz a little bit too. It's very different to grow up in that environment, have parents who are, sort of in their generation like that, than to come from another part of the country, as so many of those people did. They came out as really, really young people and then created the communes and the pranksters and all the stuff that went on afterwards, But we had parents who hadn't parented us really correctly, I'll say that, And I understand what you're saying on one hand. On the other hand, yeah, we didn't know what the box was, so we didn't think inside it. It wasn't like we were pushing outside of a structure that had been given to us. I think if my father had stayed, it would have been very difficult because he definitely wanted in on that action, and I'm glad he wasn't. And at the end of his life, because I released my CD about 6 months before he died, he heard that CD, and I talked to Trey Anastasio at his funeral, and Trey said he was so proud of you, Sarah. I have his letters. I want to give them to you. I haven't gotten them yet, but he was a musical genius. He didn't care.
I'm sorry. I just want to be clear. Trey Anastasio has yet to mail you the letters.
Yeah, he has yet to mail.
Well, I mean, let's get him going on that. I mean, he was one of your dad's student.
Yeah.
But wow. So you were already a mother. You moved to
Yeah.
Denver. What part of Colorado?
Denver.
So then,
I moved to
you
Denver
met,
in
and you, and
'83.
this is the greatest thing, though. I mean, it's just so hip. You guys all are like, you have kids, you're in the school system, and then it's like, yo, let's put a band together. You know, like you weren't like, let's go out and get tea or something or get our nails done. It was like, yeah, let's put a rock band together.
Well, it started out. It mostly started out like we all decided to have coffee at Peggy's house. So we went to Peggy's house one day. We didn't really know each other. I knew Peggy because our daughters had gone to preschool together. Dora, I didn't really know, but I recognized immediately that she was more like me than any Coloradan I'd met. I came from this scene. You know, there's those scenes all over the country. There was the New Mexico scene that she kind of spent a lot of time in. I didn't know about the other scenes, you know. But I met her, and I just immediately recognized a kindred character. And, you know, Peggy was almost the opposite. She was kind of conservative, and, you know, I think she smoked pot once in college and didn't like it, you know. And so it was sort of an unlikely trio, you know. But we had coffee, and we all just spontaneously started singing show tunes because Peggy had been a singer for a long time. She had sung with people and various, you know, sung in the church, and, you know, she had really done more than I or Dora had done, you know. So we started singing, and we could sing 3-part harmony. It was just a lot of fun, and slowly but surely, you know, out of that, and there was a flute player who was a really good friend. She played with us for a while, and out of that grew this entirely, as it turned out, insane scene. We used to call it the icky feeling pool because Dora, and I always say, but it's, you know, the golden healing pool is on the other side. Let's not forget that, you know. But we met this other band. We opened for this band that Dora and her then husband had seen, and she came back. She said, "This guy's your soulmate," you know, songwriting-wise. And that guy was married, and but he had a drummer, and eventually I ended up marrying that guy, and Dora ended up having a baby with the drummer.
But you married the woman, the guy that she said was your
soulmate.
Wow.
Yeah. I married, well, he, you know, I don't think, he was infatuated with the whole woman scene, and he had a pretty good, cool woman. In retrospect, and this is probably crappy to say, he should have stayed with her, but he was just infatuated, and that happened, you know. Yeah. We wore bustiers when we performed, and, you know, we had a really good time. And then, you know, people project on other people, so he ended up leaving the wife, and then we got together, and we were married 10 years. And then she got together with Sam Silver, and they were together for a long time. And Sophie's 22. I'm her godmother. They had a baby. So Dora was then doing, you know, we did the People's Fair in Denver, you know, several times, and she was pregnant, you know, and we did different. It was fun. It was really much better than I could ever imagine, and it was very hard to let go of when it ended.
Were you playing like? I mean, there was like.
We weren't playing like all those clubs. We did a lot of Mercury Cafe. We did.
Well, what about like, you know, like, because there used to be a club that the Jerry Hahn Brotherhood used to play out in San Francisco called the Paper Doll, which was a lesbian club, but you were a woman's band. Was that your major clientele? Was women? I mean, would you play certain clubs like the alternative clubs?
Well, I think the Mercury Cafe is like not even on the planet, actually. So I guess you could call it. You could call it alternative, you know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we ended up with all sorts of crazy gigs. We ended up with the gigs that people end up with when they're not famous, you know. And the girls ended up, you know.
Yeah, but who wants to be famous, though?
Like.
That's miserable.
Well, I wanted to have more money, because we all did, because we all had kids. And at one we had 16 kids in the band.
That's a lot of kids.
That's a lot of kids. They weren't all there at the same time, but, you know, there were quite a few. So, like, the bottom line, they didn't want to tour, so you have to, if you want to sell albums, you have to, at least that's the way it used to be. It's not like that anymore, you know. But back when we were doing it, that was kind of what you had to be willing to do, and they didn't want to do it. They were watching we were watching Devachka drive around in their band with a stand-up bass and a tuba and a bunch of guitars, and nobody wanted to do that. So, and then money got in the way at the end of the day.
Yeah, what little was to go around, it got in the way. I mean, it's always the greed factor that was kind of just beginning to percolate when when your band was cooking. I mean,
yeah.
What do you how do you get stuff out of your system today, musically?
Well, I had to move out of my house that I had my kids in, or that I'd lived in for a long time. And I kind of fell apart, and I had a grand piano that I played, endlessly through all my whatever. The music on my CD is all guitar songs, but I have a bunch of piano songs and other stuff that I would like to record again. That's about the only thing I would like to do is record. But, I'm an old lady, and so, but I could do that. I mean, that wouldn't matter. I haven't played in a long time. I play for my grandson. I've done some like open stages things up here, and people are always interested when they hear me, my songs. But I don't have the, I got so much out. If you ever hear my album, you'll understand it. I got so much out in those songs, of myself. And I'm in a totally different place in my life now, And whereas my father probably wrote until half an hour after he died, although his piano was kind of beat up when we saw it, but he had an insatiable need to compose, and I used to have an insatiable need to write, but I don't anymore. I have songs in my head. It's not like I don't have
right.
What do you call it?
Writer's block. Yeah, right.
Writer's block.
Right.
So, but I just don't have the craving, and it was always a craving with me. Music has always been a craving, but it's also a social thing for me too. Like the band was really, really important, and even though I was obviously the songwriter and the arranger, so when we did the album, every musician, we didn't have a click track, so every musician had to come in and listen to me jangling my bracelets when I was playing the guitar, and then count off from that track,
What role, what relationship did you have with your mother?
It's very complicated. I'm the oldest daughter, and I'm going through some of that right now with my oldest daughter, and I recognize very clearly, for myself anyway, that that's something that happens. It happens a lot, I think, more than we realize. We're like them, but we're not like them.
Yeah.
We're younger. I think my mother was very insecure about my father. He wasn't a great husband, and
he was unfaithful husband.
Well, I can't really. I don't know what Liz has told you, but I don't really want to.
No, I mean, there's a lot. All I'm saying is like, you say he wasn't a great husband. Automatically you think either it's financial or infidelity. But either way, you don't have to go there. It's irrelevant. But did you feel like she never was able to develop her own identity? She was living under the shadow of a somewhat dysfunctional husband?
Well, I think they were, living under each other's dysfunctional shadow, or shadow of each other's dysfunctionalness. My mother went on to become a Jungian analyst.
Wow.
And was, president or vice president of the Young Institute of Denver. So she did, but that was my stepfather. They went off to Switzerland, and I'm sure my sister told you some of that. They went off when she was like 15. And they ended up staying 7 years, and, Liz went over for a year and then came back. But it was very hard on all of us. I had a kid. We were all really young, and I had a kid. It just was not, I don't know. I now can look back and go, wouldn't have been any different whether they were around or not. But at the time, the idea of having the safe place and the parent was still a big deal to all of us, that home to go to. And
well, it was just so loose. It was just, there must have been a lot of, there were kids there and people renting and stuff, but there was a big missing link there.
A big what? I didn't hear you.
Just a big missing link, not having your parents there.
Right. Well, and I was renting the house from them when they were in Switzerland. I moved into that house. Between us, we had it for 4 years, Liz and I, and we always paid rent. And I was very anxious about it, to send them that money to Switzerland. I still have that address in my head, because I didn't want them to be without. So rather than having parents that helped us go to college or, whatever it would be, especially with our musical talent, we had parents that we worried about. And in fact, my brother's the caretaker of my mother, who's still alive. And I think he's doing fine, but it's hard. I lived a block and a half away from her for a long time, for them, a long time, and it's hard. So we didn't have that grounding. But, it was a really neat scene. It's hard when you don't have the structure to appreciate how beautiful, all of it was at the same time.
I agree. No, it's all fantasy for me. I was born in 1978, but it's just like, just.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Jake, you're such a baby.
Yeah. No, I just wanted you to, talk about. I just got off the phone with another woman who was basically a model for her whole career, and she talked about just sort of the materialism of our culture and the superficiality of that lifestyle, and sort of how that's weaved into the Me Too movement. But I wanted to ask you about your experience. Again, you weren't in the biz per se, like you said, you didn't get that record deal. But what did you and your sister run up against a lot of things just because you were a female playing music?
Well, I think all women did. I remember I dated a guy. I was living in Bolinas. It was before I met my kid's father out there. I was living in Bolinas with this. I always have these really creative, kind of crazy, wonderful girlfriends through different sections of my life, and I was living with a couple of them out there, not the ones I sang with. And I was dating this guy who wrote for Rolling Stone, and he had interviewed Stevie Nicks, and I helped him with the tapes. I helped him decipher, whatever that word is, the tapes for his article. And it was right around the time of Rumors, and she was shut up in a hotel room. She actually asked him if he knew any guys. It was after her separation. She was very unhappy and very lonely, and I could hear her talking, I could hear it, And so it was really eye-opening. It was right around a time when I, wanted to play music, and I had all these big ideas, and the other ladies were artists too, so we were going to all have this artist commune, and, perhaps, sell some coke on the side. So we had those people coming over.
Of course.
But we had a meditation room with all sorts of Tibetan prayer rugs in the attic, and we also had, what's his name? Friend of a Devil is a friend of mine. Who was that song about?
Who was that song about? Are you kidding me? That was about somebody?
Yeah, it was about I'll probably get killed for this, but it was about their road manager back then.
Was it Rock Scully?
Yeah, Rock Scully.
Rocks.
That's what I heard anyway. But he was one of people would troop, from time to time out to our house, and we were sort of a little notorious, apparently very notorious, I found out later, but we didn't feel notorious, We felt like, and we all had kids that were, we felt like we were this creative women's household, and everybody else, and we did get busted for something somebody else did, but they gave them our address, and so they surrounded the house and came in with shotguns, and there were kids' toys, and, we had some pot growing in the back, and they ripped it up, and later on the sheriff called and apologized. He was just like, oh my God, if I had known. That was the Sausalito cops. They're the ones that did it. And the Sausalito cops called and apologized too. It was a very different, funny time, but it was dangerous and scary, and that's when I started to realize I can't live this way anymore. And it was very soon after that I met my husband in the bar out there, and the No Name Saloon, and we started dating, and then I moved in with him, and I got out of that house. And then we moved back over the hill, and we started up the Cascades, or I started up the Cascades. We started up the Cascades right around then, and, you know, we played around Marin County, and, you know, again, didn't get big. You know, everybody loved us, but we didn't, you know.
Well, I mean, it's all relative anyway. I mean, are there tapes of the Cascades?
Yeah, well, my brother has more of that stuff. You really need to talk to him because he had a band called Wet Nurse, which is a name that floats around.
It was the first punk band, really.
Yeah, right, exactly. My sister sang for Wet Nurse. I was actually having a baby and nursing it, so I was not in Wet Nurse. But Ernie has, you know, he's kind of the, you know, biographer and librarian and whatever of all that.
That's great.
So he has stuff, you know, posters and whatever. Yeah, Wet Nurse. And then after this, not too long after that, I guess, you know, Liz started getting close to the Jerry Garcia band and got involved with those.
Well, again, it seems to me like it makes sense. I've always been fascinated with how she connected, and I think it was Rock Scully had something to do with that, because Rock was
probably,
you know. But I always treasure that.
Is he still alive? He can't.
He passed on. He left us last year, so I never got a chance to catch a hang with the guy. But I just wanted to, you know, as we wrap set one here, Sarah, I wanted you to talk about just your there's some great pictures of you and Liz, and I wanted you to just talk about your relationship with your sister and why you love Liz Stiers.
Well, she's very lovable, for one thing. And she's my little sister. I was old enough, you know, I was enough older than her that, you know, I would dream. She was like my baby sometimes, not, you know, a baby, but I had that kind of feeling about her. When she was going through certain struggles, I was very anxious and worried about her. It was horrible. And I was really, really frightened, and I didn't really know, you know, what was happening or how to help myself, really, which is what I needed to do. And I had, you know, a teenager and a baby, and so it was all very rough. But she's really a lovely person. She's, you know, more of a homemaker. She's more of a craft person. She always was the one that sewed things or made things. She creates this environment around her that it's very lovely. And she's a lovely person. She's very funny. She's an introvert, and I'm an extrovert. So she gets pretty overwhelmed by me. We've always talked about doing more projects together. We never have. I mean, she wants to, or I want to, but I think the reality is I don't know how we could.
Well, I mean, and it's actually in this day and age of such disparate, spread out people. I mean, it might be easier to do it over the, you know, you could just communicate over the internet without being in the same, necessarily having to camp out in a studio for 2 weeks or something like that.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the most appropriate way to do it. What I loved about Cornelian was women and the fun and the laughs and the little road trips we took, you know, the little road tours, and, you know, we laughed our asses off all the time. It was so fun. And our engineer's wife used to call us his Wednesday wives, because if he was in a bad mood and we showed up, he was always happy after that, you know, so she loved it. And she and this other guy did our album cover, and she does Steve Martin's album covers too. They're really good with the pop-ups and everything. Mine doesn't have the pop-up, but anyway, Liz, you know, I would love to do a project with her, and I would do it any way I could, and I think she would too, but it wouldn't be as fun for me not being in the same room.
Right. Well, I mean, it's just hard enough. I mean, it's hard enough to get her to go on Facebook Live and sing. She's practicing and has gigs, but then doesn't want to get, you know, blow it out to the world, you know. So I've been trying to push her out of her comfort zone, and
good. She said you were a little pushy.
I'm very pushy. I actually, if you let her know,
Okay, so am I.
it's okay, but you can let her know I have a crush on her too. So I do want to push her, in a good way, just because, I never really ever thought that, I would be able to, get to half the cats that I've gotten to, but, along the way, these little spiritual things come along where it's like, words don't really describe it, and I just, like in some ways you can look back and say, how did this guy get a record deal, or why did my dad abandon us, or whatever. But you look at the whole larger picture of it, and you say, you've had an inspiring life, and just, I guess, as long as you're here, I would say to continue to keep creating as much as possible, because that's all you've been doing your whole life.
Well, the other thing I've done is I've run Jungian dream groups for the last 35 years. That's what I did. That made more money than music, anyway.
Absolutely.
And then I had private clients. So I studied Jungian psychology. So what I came away with, and I come away with at the end of the day, I'll just say this, is my mother, it was my stepfather's idea, but my mother gave me Jungian psychology, and my father gave me music. And those are the two things, other than having my children, that I've done in my whole entire life. So I'm very grateful, because it all does work out. It's just frustrating that we don't know how it's going to work out.
The mystery of life. Look at me, it's unfolding right now, and I don't know where it's going to go. And, but what you just said encapsulates everything. And I think that's the, it's how you can deal with it, and how you can be here now, and how you can inspire other people through your work. And, that's all I'm, and there are consequences, but at the end of the day, it's feeding me, and I know it's inspiring a lot of people, and it's completely singular, and I'm just continuing to push forward on it, and I'm glad you're hip to the show, and it was just great to hang with you.
It's great to hang with you, Jake. I really appreciate the invitation, and I love what you're doing. I've read some of your interviews on Facebook. I'm a novice, so I don't know.
It's fine. It's not that complicated to read,
no.
But I just want you to I want to be clear that all the material that you read, these are all excerpts from what we just did. They're all primary source radio interviews with guys, or in this case now I've been taking it to the road and doing a lot of video, Facebook Live stuff. But yeah, it's a head thing, and I'm just looking to inspire, and just keep supporting me, and we'll stay in touch. And I'll get you a copy.
I do.
I'll get you a copy of this later on, sometime this evening at some point. But it was a ball to hang with you.
Well, if you give me your address at some point, I'll send you one of my 3 CDs. And the other thing is, I just want to tell you, reading your stuff, it's very beautiful. I love the way your interviews go, and how you see these people, how you perceive them, how you, I'm not sure who's talking to who sometimes, but I really love reading them.
Well, I'm bothered by the fact that there's still confusion. It's always whatever you're reading is not from me. These are transcriptions from Chuck Rainey, from Jim Keltner, from Sarah Stiers. So, the one thing that I think throws some people...
Do you ask them questions, or do you not talk to them at all? They just send you stuff?
Well, I guess I haven't sent you my website, but all 3,500 interviews, audio, are there. So it's all in stream of consciousness, live radio interviews. None of it is... I've never sent anybody...
No, they're like this one. They're like the one that...
Absolutely, just what we just did. Yeah, it's
right. So what I'm telling you is, I love it. I think you do a great job. Your questions, you just are doing a really great thing, and I'm pretty critical myself. So when I say that, I am my father's daughter after all. So.
Hey, no, I did. Listen, you know what? I appreciate it. There's an aesthetic. Listen, some of the heaviest cats in the world, they've already dubbed me the Alan Lomax of the 21st century. I don't know how many people are going to even know who that is, but I've already passed the credibility threshold with the old guard, And now I'm
You
connected.
have. I know the old garden. I know who you've talked to, and you have.
It's just
I
that
was
they're
impressed.
putting me on their backs, and I mean, people are having a ball. All I can say is it's totally the insecure path, and I think you guys know all about that because the insecure path is the secure path. So, Sarah Stiers, much love to you, and have a beautiful weekend. And yeah, we'll stay in touch.
Me your address so I can send you a CD.
I will.
If you
I'll
can't
send
find
that
one.
to you. I'll message that to you.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Jake.
Adi, good to hear you, Sarah.
good one.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. A day of spiritual liberation. Pam Ross Porcaro in hour 1, and then part of the Stiers lineage, Sarah Stiers. We will be back Monday afternoon with Firestar. I'm going to be down in Aravaca on Monday. Thanks to Jim Parisi. Until then, peace.